Tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning, everybody, and another warm welcome to this current council meeting. So welcome to members of the public, both in the chamber and online. Welcome councillors and staff. Today's agenda is, compared to a number of others that we've had in the past, it's relatively light, but still a number of important topics for us to cover off as we go through. So first of all, we've got Councillor Cowles joining us online. I'm not sure whether Councillor McCone will be joining us, but in the event that he doesn't, we'll take him as an apology. Do we have any other apologies? Okay, so I move that we accept the apology. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Percival, thank you very much. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against, that's carried. Any declarations of interest? There are none. So move on to public forum. We've got two registrations, Peter Plunkett and Mike Sweeney, to speak to us this morning. So welcome, gentlemen. Peter, you're up first, so please take a seat, and when you're ready to speak, just press the silver button on the right-hand side.
So that's it. We're in business.
That's it.
People hear me?
Yep.
Yep. The first thing is, I'll try and keep this very short. I'd like to, I think this is Arlene possibly. Look, I'd like to apologise. I was a bit fervent to you on the phone when you rang and organised this. So thank you very much for putting up with my bit of a rant. But anyway, because I think you directed, I should have been saying it here, not to you, which was quite correct. But anyway, the things I'd actually like to talk about would take me 15 minutes. So it's sort of disappointing that I don't have that time, because in my opinion, there's a lot of things that, I can go through all sorts of things, and particularly the draft. I know this is only a draft, but the long-term plan draft costings here, every page on here has got some issue I would personally like to discuss with you folks. My essential aim is to talk about the rates. Now this article appeared the other day, and I totally accept that this has to be some major expenditure in the future on particularly wastewater, water and stormwater, particularly those items, So the first thing about this thing is I'd actually like to see it, it would have been nice rather than have a scare tactic. I would like to see some sort of, at least some detail that appears in here where there are estimates of, 10 million in year 3, 4, 5 or whatever down in the wastewater and so forth, at least to give some people some idea of where this is going. But the second thing is about this is this all ties in with the water done well, is that regardless if you people had managed to take a decision to do a CCO, combined CCO, we're still going to be facing these issues anyway. It's just a separate cost, and it wouldn't come from the council, it would have come from the CCO. So this, I accept that this is going to happen, at some point in time. What I'm also asking though is along with a whole range of stuff, is that when I look at this draft long-term plan, I know there's only a draft, is that almost everything on this thing, in my opinion, could be not cancelled, but postponed. So we could stretch this out over a longer period of time. Everything on this list, what I'm asking the council to do is to try and keep the rates somewhere increases, somewhere down for the obviously major ticket items that there needs to be expenditure. But the rest of the time, I'd like to see the rates kept down closer at the rate of inflation, so what I'm suggesting is, and I've talked to several councillors about this before, and they've said to me that, essentially that some of these items that show up here in this list are pretty minor league in the sums involved, but at the end of the day, there is some old saying where pennies add up to pounds, I sort of take exception to a certain extent we've got things like the Waitaki Economic Development Strategy. We've got this business, and I've just seen this now, but there's look at the pages of this. Now, I went to this business about the Waywee Waitaki and whatever on the Sunday afternoon at the Bryden. And the money that's been spent on this, in my opinion, I accept that at some point we need a rebrand, but I'm suggesting to you folks that this could have been left for years. We could have, when there's more important things to be done, to me, this is like the Titanic, isn't it? Look at this, pages of this. And we're paying some consultants in Wellington 300 grand or whatever. I don't know what the figures are there somewhere, but I can't keep them all in my head. So that's So we've got the Oamaru CBD master plan. We've got the village CBD master. Well, they're just master plans. We've got the Waitaki Whitestone UNESCO Geopark, which I know that the ball's rolling and it's unstoppable. But in my opinion, this is all unnecessary expenditure. We've got the Discovery Hub coming up. There's some massive sums for that. Obviously, it comes out of depreciation funding or something. But at the end of the day, that still comes back to the ratepayer eventually. We've got the Waitaki Story and Identity, which is this business. I'm saying stick to the signage we've got, just replace that, and let's look at this in 10 years' time or something. Or let your grandchildren or something, the next generation, look at this. Tourism Waitaki, in my opinion, I mean, the Whitestones, they've basically abdicated things to the Whitestone Civic Trust. Forward Waitaki, I've got a question mark. Waitaki Destination Management Plan, the Alps to Ocean, which is, is pretty, it brings some economic benefit to the town, but, to some old age pensioner somewhere out in the flat somewhere, does it benefit her? I'm not sure, and when you look at the expenses in here on that, they do add up over time, Cape Wombrau Concept Plan, I'm saying leave it alone. The Oamaru Harbour Plan 2020 and beyond, leave it alone. The Spatial Plan, leave these things, delay or postpone them. That's what I'm saying. And then you get back to the ticket item here, the transformation, now, I have spoken about this more than once, and the initial figure when this came out was in the paper, and I haven't got the cutting, unfortunately, but it was a figure of 4.5 million and bandied around about 2 years ago. And I'm not an economist, right? So I would have liked to have seen some sort of figure. So the costs at that point, and now somebody can correct me, but the 4.5 million, I'd like to have seen some figure that could put a dollar terms of benefit to the ratepayer. All I've seen is the transformation. Apart from this is what it says about the transformation. Customer service transformed, changing the way we Waitaki. We've changed the way, blah, blah, blah. It's about the library. That's the only, in my opinion, obviously things have happened internally here. I'm certain of that. But for 4.5, can somebody show me where the dollar figure is for the benefit to the ratepayer on the expense? I mean, there's more, there's more transformation stuff mentioned here. As I said, I could go through every page. I've got some stuff marked here, and I could go through every page and ask about where the figures come from. Could they be delayed? And that's what I'm kind of asking is that I go back to the water done well business, so that document, Southern Water Done Well, talked about, I think, I can't remember, there's 13 million setup costs for that CCO, which was obviously, you're talking about this rates rise, but, the 13 million was setup cost alone was going to be some sort of hit as a water charge. But what that Water Done Well document talked about was a 16% decrease in, it's something like year 2 or year 3, a 16% decrease in rates, but then obviously hit on top with something like that from the water company, not rates, but from the water company or the CCO, But the figures I recall after that were ongoing, and this is in the long term. This was in the long term plan. Sorry, I might be the Water Done Well long term plan because I'm getting. I think long term plan might suggest ongoing rates rises of 4%. After that was assuming the CCO had been formed. And I'm asking you folks to try and stay within somewhere near, obviously apart from big ticket items, somewhere near the rate of inflation, which at the moment is 2.7%. Now you're hitting us this year with a 9.8 or something. And the rate of inflation to June 25 is from the last to June 25 is 2.7%. That's all I'm asking is some sort of economic restraint, particularly this sort of stuff, like, as I said, I can read out these things again to you, but, the CBD master plan and stuff. It's fine to have I think it's time to slow down and, smell the roses or something, leave it for a future generation. But, so anyway, I'm sorry about having a rant, but then thank you very much for listening, So
Thanks, Peter. We don't have a lot of time, but I'll quickly run through. The rate increase was 9.44%.
Yep.
The reality is we are getting hit with a lot. We're not doing the same thing from year to year. So, and the things we do go up by more than the normal rate of inflation, unfortunately. So that's the problem we have. We do go through a quite extensive program of trying to reduce those costs down, and and that means cutting things out. You've seen the furore about the, removing rubbish bins, 20% of the rubbish bins, which aren't being used much, saving whatever the dollars was for that. So it's trying to look at everything that we do and making the best decisions that we can on those different things. The Amru Mail, we can't dictate what goes in there. We can't, even the local office probably don't make the headlines. It'll be done in Dunedin, and it's they've picked the one that obviously gets people's attention. The reality is it's all based on the public workshop that we had, which was live streamed or recorded and is on our website, so people can get a better understanding of the detail there. There's a lot of transparency when if people take the time to actually look through our website, look through those recordings and so on. In-house versus CCO, I mean, this is the argument we made. Prices are going to go up for water. They are going to go up a lot. It was really around the quantum of how much they go up. So I'm not going to relitigate that. That's just simply the reality, and trying to understand that. But the branding that we did pay a consultant for was for the district. Was a key part in getting things like the town entrance signs and district entrance signs redone. A good friend of yours and mine has been very adamant on his Facebook page about the need to get these signs sorted, and our team internally has been doing a lot of work. So those things are, there's a call from the community to get some of this stuff done, and we're responding to that. The stuff that's you pointed out in the agenda today, that was done in-house with our own resources, and they've done a really good job. To be fair,
I apologise for that.
Transformation. I don't know whether Mr. Palmer wants to make any comment on that one.
Yeah, so the transformation business case went to the last council in September 2022, where it quantified, what the return on the investment was. So there was a budget set for transformation at that stage. That's been spent over a number of years, and the dollar return was quantified in there. So if you want to have a look at council in September 2022, that's where that transformation business case was agreed.
Thank you very much, because that was all while, if that's, I'm sure it's transparent, but if I can see that, I mean, obviously, there's some direct to you've got better things to do, there isn't given start the way through, but so if you just want to get that, the council meetings are available, those minutes will be available.
Yes, the September meeting in 2022. There have been numerous comments subsequent to that, really around what transformation was to do, which was to basically make sure the council does things better, delivers things better. That was first and foremost, just to be a better organisation and how we deliver services. Time for a couple of quick questions, I think, just as long as councillors keep an eye on time overall. Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, question one to you, Peter, and one to perhaps Mr. Palmer or an officer. I take it from what you said about keeping rates closer to the rate of inflation. Would you be supportive of what appears to be a government determination to cap rates? And as far as I'm aware, some of the matters that Mr. Plunkett has raised in his submission, for instance, the master plan for the CBD, that actually was funded from government better off funding, I think, was it not? So to some of the amounts mentioned and projects identified haven't cost ratepayers anything. Other things like the Discovery Hub would never proceed unless there was substantial external funding, and I think that's identified in the long-term plan as well, is it not?
So sounds like questions for me. So yes, Discovery Hub, there's a budget amount in there, but it's based on external funding. So it's envisaged that that's not rates money, that's external funding that's realised. And if we don't realise that external funding, then it won't happen in the way that's envisaged. And yes, the master plan the master plans were produced using better off funding, and yes, better off funding that's there to help implement those, including in the townships master plans. The other thing I'd say in terms of that comment about rates, I think probably the challenge we have, and every council has had, is communicating the scale of the water challenge in terms of meeting the standards that have been required by government, meeting the investment needs for ageing infrastructure and what that costs, and being able to keep rates down to inflation is, I'd say, a nigh on impossible task. So in the LTP session and decision, we stripped out the funding of depreciation for waters. So to put that in context, to put that back in, you could close the Opera House, the library, the Aquatic Centre, the gallery, the museum, and you still will have not funded that depreciation. You still have not saved enough money to fund that depreciation. Such are the costs within the water area that we need to meet. And that doesn't mean we should say, oh, well, it costs what it costs. I think doing it efficiently is really important, and making sure that we've got the right programme is important. And I think, people around this council table know we've been through that programme time and time again, and no doubt we'll go through it again a few more times to make sure that we're not spending $1 more than we need to meet the community's needs and meet the regulatory requirements. But it is a massive challenge. The costs in there dwarf everything else that we do, including roading. And roading's our second largest area, but the water costs are far in excess of what we spend on roading now.
But I appreciate that totally. What I'm actually asking is to consider seriously a lot of these things, which I said it at one point, the pennies add up to pounds, and I appreciate when you look at some of the huge sums involved in the wastewater and the water, the pennies, it's insignificant in real terms. But I am asking you to delay or postpone some of these issues. I mean, the small things. I mean, Jim was in the paper. Mr. Councillor Hopkins was in the paper several weeks ago talking about. There's a figure in here. Okay, it's only $200,000 or something to make the freezer building safe. Now, I'm suggesting that's been in that state for 30 years with a fence around it. I think we could leave it for another 10. Before we spend the 200, there's 500,000 in here for car park on the other side of Scott. So I think that could be in year 2 or something. I mean, these things slowly add up. I'm just saying that I appreciate that. Like it is difficult to, when I mean, the car park at the Wanbrow, But hey, listen. Oh, that's more than I did. Should have said what starts my.
It's fine. Thanks very much, Peter. And the office there, if you want to catch up and have a chat about any of that, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, no, good as gold. Thank you. Next, we've got Mike Sweeney. So welcome to the chamber, Mike. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, all your way.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to speak to council. I'm glad that I'm still allowed in the building. Waitaki District has filed a water services delivery plan for in-house operation and received approval from DIA, or they say they have. And I think this is very good news because it shows how other districts like ours can successfully deal with water service plans. Waitaki decided that it wanted to keep on managing its 3 waters in the same way it always has before government came up with local water done well. So it made the fewest adjustments needed to achieve pro forma compliance with the Act. In the plan, the council explained its reasons as follows. This model allows the council to use existing resources, take advantage of shared overheads and technical expertise, maintain council ownership and control, and coordinate water service activities alongside other council functions. Waitaki took this preferred option to public consultation and received a 97.2% approval from the public. So what Waitaki sets out in its plan is this. Some of the people involved with 3 waters are moved to a new part of council named the in-house business unit. The rest of council will provide the in-house business unit with, and quote, financial services, IT software, systems and support, GIS asset databases, customer services, fleet management, property management, human resources, rating, and etc., end quote. Overall supervision of the unit will be provided by the council's chief executive and the utilities and roading manager. There won't be any separate water bills. Council will continue to include water charges as part of its rates bill. The council's own water unit this is an existing water unit of council, which operates drinking water systems, will continue as a council department. All these council services will be formalized with the service level agreements between the in-house business unit and the various council departments, a contract, in other words, or many contracts. So what is left with the in-house business unit itself? It's basically just a home for water and wastewater engineers and a payment conduit for Three Waters operation and investment. Even the Three Waters paperwork, very substantial, demanded by government, will apparently be prepared as a support service by the rest of council. The actual work of operating, maintaining, and building the Three Waters systems will continue to be done by the council's water unit and the various private contractors. And the in-house business unit won't bear the sole burden of negotiating all those contracts because council's existing project delivery team and infrastructure resilience team will be on the job under their service level agreements with the in-house business unit. Significantly, Waimakariri says, we do not expect any additional costs from transitioning to an in-house business unit. So I guess you can see the picture here. Waimak is telling government, when we say in-house, we mean it. And don't think you can tear our council apart over this. And apparently, Waimak has gotten away with it. There are compromises in Waimak's plan. Parliament's bill demands that all funding of the Three Waters activity must be identified. Rather than just designating the support services as in-kind funding, Waimak proposes to make the in-house business unit actually pay cash for these services out of the water charges. Waimak estimates these internal charges would be about $4 million per year, or about 14% of the total operations expenditure of the in-house business unit. This would be new revenue for the rest of council, as I see it, which it could use for whatever purposes it wants, including reducing rates in a proportional way to compensate ratepayers for the impact on their water bills. This taking money out of one pocket and putting it into another serves no purpose that I can see. And it would be worth trying to submit a plan that simply declared the support services as in-kind funding that satisfies the ring fencing rule because it is spent entirely on delivering water services. Over the 10-year plan, Waimak predicts that water charges will increase by only 3% per year. The council is fully funded depreciation and gets a lot of development contributions for capital costs. So it predicts that its Three Waters debt, presently at 81 million, will grow by only 37 million over the 10 years. In meeting the Three Waters challenges, Waimak has many advantages that other councils don't have. Nevertheless, Waimak has established important precedents for how other councils can minimize costs and disruption for their own water services delivery plans. And I hope Waitaki will learn from these lessons.
Thank you, Mike. As you note, there are significant differences with us and Waimakariri. They have 66,000 people. They are
77.
relatively high growth districts. They've had a lot of new infrastructure provided either because of earthquakes or because of growth up to date, and they don't have the extent of assets that we have in the Waitaki district. So those are some fundamental things, and I don't want you to lose sight of that when you make all these other statements, that they are important considerations as far as the base situation is concerned and the differences between Waitaki and Waimakariri. That's not to say that we won't be making the most of what we do have to have a plan, a water services delivery plan that does meet all of the tests that the IA throw at us. Happy to take any questions, comments. Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, I guess the key one would be the DIA has said yes. So clearly what Waimakariri is proposing meets the threshold that they've said has to be met by individual local authorities or collective groupings. In terms of the internal arrangements identified by Mr. Sweeney and set out in the Waimakariri Council proposal, Have we looked at those? Do we see any synergies, compatibilities? Are we incorporating any of those propositions, hypotheses, structural arrangements in our own proposal we have to have to DIA by the end of this week?
Seems like a question for me again, rather than the speaker.
Yes, it is.
And so I think I outlined this at the workshop we had last week, that our assumption at the moment is we're not going to undertake a restructure to be able to deliver our water services delivery plan. We don't have a water department as Waimakariri does at the moment. We deliver differently through a transformed organisation. And to go back to having a water department would add in a lot of costs, we think, for us. So we're not proposing to do that. We're proposing to, that a ring fence unit would be, financially ring fencing, which is what the legislation requires, not setting up a whole new team and putting everything in it. We do have concern about, the resources, and Waimakariri is a larger council than us, and we're taking advice on that as to, what are the additional resources we might need. But at this stage, we think the most cost-effective way is to work with our existing structure and undertake a financial ring fencing. I'd say, and Paul can correct me if I'm wrong on this, we already have a system of recharging to different business units for support services and for use of facilities and such like. So I think that already happens. And we just need to make sure that the basis we do that on, is a fair assessment of what should be charged to water. So I think a lot of what you're talking about there, I think, is what we're thinking already, and as part of how we operate, that we don't want to add in additional costs unnecessarily to achieving this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for coming in. Councillors, we've used up a little bit more time than expected, but as I said, hopefully we can catch that up as we go through. So we'll go on to the minutes. So we've got the public minutes from the extraordinary council meeting held on the 30th of June. Moved Councillor Hopkins, seconded by Councillor Holding. Thank you. Any comments on those? All those in favour of accepting those, please say aye. Against? Carried. Then the public minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 8th of July. Moved Councillor Hopkins, seconded Councillor Holding. Quick on the draw. Any comments on those? I'll put that, those in favour, please say aye. And against? That is carried. And then lastly, the public minutes of the council meeting held on the 24th of June.
Chair, I'll move those with amendments as agreed. I have raised with the governance service lead, Arlene Goss, a couple of absolutely minor grammatical matters on page 31, which she's going to look at.
I'm sure I didn't miss anything, but no, that's fine. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Linwood, thank you. Any comments on that? Okay, put it, those in favour say aye. And against? Carried. Thank you. Moving to 5.1 recommendations from the Waimo Community Board meeting held on the 7th of July. And just note, these are in the form that they move them, and it's just helpful if they're reframed as recommendations directly to us, or as the recommendation that we need to make a motion. So what I'm taking for the first one is that essentially the council directs that the loan funded amount of $40,000 originally set aside for the study into Hamden's wastewater system be repaid, and that staff communicate or consult with the Hamden community on the cost of developing a reticulated wastewater system. Moved Councillor Hopkins, Deputy Mayor Halaleli seconded that. Any discussions on that? I will put that then. Those in favour say aye. And against? That's carried. And the second one is that council approves making Lincoln Street one way where it crosses the railway lines to alleviate safety concerns. So that's Lincoln Street in Hamden. Moved Councillor Thompson. Okay, we'll go to the question first.
Although I'm not sure if it's true, it probably would be to Josh. I just wonder if the wording of that actually is misleading and or untenable. I mean, I don't think the street can be made one way where it crosses the railway lines. It would seem to me that if it's going to happen, we should be saying it will be made one way from this location to that location, rather than just simply where it crosses the railway lines. Unless that is the intention. Is that the intention?
So what councillor Hopkins is meaning, it's two-way, there's a railway line, but of one way and then two-way. Is that what you're taking? So essentially it's east, from the railway line east.
Yeah.
Is what we're talking about.
The street will remain two-way down to the railway line. Then it will become one-way because it's very narrow and dangerous. And cars or people leaving the camping ground will then not be able to come back up Lincoln Street, but will effectively go around the block in a circular motion. So Lincoln Street will become one way from the narrowing at the rail junction.
So it's east of the railway lines. I think that's we can reword it to that. So it is very clear as to which part, if you're happy with that, Mr. Endo. Thank you. So, sorry, councillor Thompson, you happy to move?
Yep.
And seconded. Councillor Linwood, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, I shall put that. Those in favour, please say aye. And against. That is carried. Now moving on to item 6.1, the adoption of the communication engagement strategy, including endorsement of new council brand. And I'll start this off just by thanking the team for the work. We normally wait till the end, but just recognise the amount of work and creativity that's gone into this particular project, and the update, which it would be good to know how that's going to be rolled out and so forth as well. But I'll hand over to Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you and good morning. I just wanted to provide a short intro to this paper, which sees us seeking adoption of the new communications and engagement strategy, which does include the endorsement of a new council brand. And that builds on the earlier work done by the Waitaki Story project. It's a really great next step in our new ways of working as a transformed council, and following in line with some of our earlier principles identified through our program, which was, managing our customer expectations and working to keep them informed throughout everything we do. This strategy is a really key tool to ensure that we are engaging and communicating well with our communities, and that we're being able to be confident that we're actually focused on delivering community needs because we're listening to them. You'll recall that we did have a conversation in here earlier, and we did put the draft strategy and some of that work up into convene for your feedback, so thank you. And it has all resulted in this strategy coming to you today. I would also like to acknowledge the great work that Sonia and the team have done on this, particularly in the branding work, which we've done completely in-house. So we've got some incredible skill here, and we're really proud of it. So I'll hand over to the team to walk through the papers.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, this has been a long time coming, and thanks everyone for your patience, but we got there in the end. And thanks for everyone's feedback that they've given us so far. And I guess our team's really excited to have a good strategy to work from going forward. It'll help focus our team, and it will make us more efficient and able to do our work in the community in a lot more of a focused way. So I guess we're just really excited to get going with it. Is there any questions? I'm assuming everyone's read the paper. Yeah, just take questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Sonia. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the work that's gone in, but my question is, how successful will this be? Because surely the first step is to actually ensure that our staff follow a policy of inform, educate, promote, consult and collaborate. And it's only going to take a few of those negative experiences, which invariably falls on the desk of the local councillor when something happens. So my challenge would be that we need to actually make sure that we've got this right in-house before we trumpet its success in the community.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's why a lot of this strategy is really internally focused. It's about upskilling staff on the fact that everybody here in council is a part of the communications team, part of the engagement team. And you're right, like it can all fall apart based on one experience that the public has with one of our staff. So yeah, we've really focused on creating toolkits and frameworks and all sorts of things, and it's going to be backed up by a whole support system for staff so that they've got the skills of the communications and engagement team behind them, but they're kind of empowered to be part of the communications team. Do you want to
Yeah, so thank you for that point. As Sonia said, we totally agree with that. And you'll see in this strategy, we're really clear about saying that this is for everyone. So this isn't just for our team, this is for everyone to ensure that we have effective communication and consistent engagement across all council functions. And once you have hopefully adopted that today, one of the next steps is to launch this at the next managers and leads hui and really embed that at that manager level and then start working through the teams to get it into the functionality of those different teams. A really key part to back up this strategy is the framework that we're developing. So we're a really well-oiled machine as a team, and that we can support other teams to do this work. And where there's sort of smaller engagement or communication, we'll have that really robust toolkit that different departments can use so that they feel like they can really work with this strategy and are empowered by our team to do it if we're not going to be there walking each step of the way on the big projects with them.
Thank you.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, look, I have a couple of minor questions, like if you could amplify the information on page 61, talking about staff spending hours looking for information. And also page 65, I'm just curious to know, there's a reference to us wanting inclusive participation. I can't see how participation can be anything other than inclusive, to be perfectly honest. But more generally, the document at the moment sets out very clearly what we want to do and the outcomes we wish to achieve, but it doesn't say how we intend to achieve them and what and we intend to do differently internally and externally. Do we intend internally to have some training for writing? Do we intend actually to say, yes, we're going to teach you how to write simple, plain English and actually require you to do so? Are we going to say, look, we've used all this print material for years, we're going to TikTok, or no, seriously, the New York Democrat mayoral candidate has rocketed to prominence using precisely that platform. So what I'm saying is, what is going to be different about how we do what we do, please? What specifically is going to be different?
So yeah, the strategy, I guess, is the higher level document. The initiatives that come out of the strategy is where we'll be talking about, the how. So one of the ways is this toolkit that we're talking about for staff, which has plain English guides, things like that, and tips on how to communicate well, writing guides, all that thing. And, part of it is looking at the digital tools, looking at how we use, social media, website, new innovative digital tools. So those are all covered in the initiatives and happy to go. I think they'll kind of, once you see them, you'll see them brought to life, and it's something that hopefully everyone will be able to follow.
I did have one other question. Also had a comment about the logo, but I guess would deal with that separately. The other big concern I have, and it appears on page 42, 62 and 72, repeated references to we want people to see us as good at listening. Now, the difficulty I have with this is that I believe the community defines good listening as you agreed with me. And I see officers nodding. And the problem is, there is a view, and it was expressed in a letter by Dougal McTavish to the ODT recently, you know, in respect of the water consultation, the majority of people voted to keep it in-house. Now, this is the perception the public has. And one of the reasons we have consultation fatigue and cynicism is almost by definition, a significant number of people in any consultation process are going to be disappointed if the test is you listened to me because you said yes to what I proposed. So do you think there is how do we frame the notion of listening in such a way that tells people listening doesn't mean agreeing, because it can't?
Yeah, and I completely agree with that, Councillor Hopkins. So I think there's a really key graphic within the strategy with council decision making at the centre and all of the things that you guys are charged with, you know, that come into that decision making. And really good engagement is allowing our community to understand, you know, topic really thoroughly, to give informed feedback that is useful to the decision making process. And I think we've absolutely got some education to do with the community around how decisions are made, and you know, to do that and for them to build trust in us, we need to look at the way that we engage. So we need to start being really authentic. One of the things that we've identified we haven't done well in the past, that's a key part of this strategy, is closing the loop with the community. So some of that toolkit and the framework that Sonia just referenced is having templates where those messages and those little education pieces are really embedded in the communication that goes out. So a decision letter after an engagement has taken place is one of the things that we're working on at the moment, and reiterated in that decision letter, like as well as communicating what that decision was, is the process that council go through to make it a decision and all of the things that they have to factor in, as well as the feedback from the community. So I think you're right. It's about working with the community as we roll out this strategy to understand the context in which decisions are made and what their part is. So through a toolkit, through consistent, authentic engagement, and through having templates that keep us sending that message consistently. Hopefully that somewhat answered your question.
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. With the brand refresh, I know you've spent time going and, you know, presenting that to the different facilities and organisations, and noting that these are draft. Do they become final if we adopt them today, or what's the next steps there? And maybe if you could talk about some of the feedback that you've had from the facilities. And
so no, they're just presented as draft concepts only to give you an idea of how that sort of same visual language would work across the facilities. Yeah, we have gone round to the different facilities and had workshops with various stakeholders. Stronger Waitaki, we've talked to their management group and their steering group. And so far it's just been really, really positive. Like everyone's really excited to kind of bring all our brands together and just have a really easy to use brand guidelines, lots of good templates that the facilities can use themselves, so they're not always relying on designers or relying on us to produce collateral for them. So they're pretty excited about that. I haven't had any pushback at all from the facilities so far, so they're excited. But like I said, there's a bit more work to do with them, and it will definitely be the council brand first, and then I think hopefully we might kick off with the libraries next, because they're really excited to move along, and then we'll you know, there's obviously facilities who have just updated their logos, like the gallery and the museum, so they're quite happy with what they've got, so we'll leave them alone for a while. And yeah, it's very much a phased approach and just updating signage and everything as we go, as things need to be updated and replaced. We're not going to just do a big rollout all at once. So there'll be a bit of an interim period where there'll be both logos and brands in use, and we just have to live with that and then try and do it as cheaply as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, since we've moved to the council brand refresh, I take it, just if there's a typo somewhere, as there is, okay. But with the refresh, the one thing I would say is what we've just adopted, in my view, is a lovely graphic symbol. I really like that W. And it strikes me as weird that the first thing we do, having adopted something that I think completely reinvigorates how we represent ourselves, is we change it. And I would argue that that if we want people to understand how much we do, one effective way to do that would be to actually include the same logo in all of our areas of activity. It was a classic case in Scotland where a single bus company, all the services in the city were green. Services were tendered, a range of different companies took up won some of the tenders, a whole lot of different coloured buses started running the roads, and patronage declined because people no longer realised that the range and scope of the bus services available. So my argument would be, in the first instance, we should use that W for everything and perhaps evolve subsidiary symbolism subsequently. The one variation I like is the heart for stronger Waitaki, but I wouldn't start tinkering with the new logo we've got. I would use that as an image across everything we do, at least certainly in the first instance.
Yeah, there will certainly be examples where both logos will be used alongside each other, and we've deliberately kept the brand guidelines similar. So we're using the same colours, the same fonts and the same visual language. The difference is with the Waitaki District logo, it was really intended to be more of a district-wide brand that businesses might be able to use to promote the Waitaki District, that we can use a lot more widely than the council brand. We wouldn't want the businesses to be co-branding or using the council mark on their, goods and services and things like that. So the Waitaki brand is, probably more from an economic and tourism development perspective, using it for that. Council brand wants to align with that, but we need to really be clear on what's a council service and what's might be a private business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we need to be clear that the distinction between the two, that we worked on the district brand that can be more universal. This is really council specific stuff. And it's not to say we can't have the district brand that's alongside it. I think we can, but I like the variety of things that you've come up with, and but keeping that constant theme overall. I think you've done really well on that personally. Any other comments? Yeah, Councillor Longwood.
Thank you. Just following on from what Gary said, I really love it all, and I think you've done a really great job, and I love the drafts. You could carry on with them and I would be happy. I think it all ties in really well, so good job.
Anything else? Right. Both recommendations. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Thompson. Thank you. Speaking to that.
Thank you. When I first became an elected member, one of the first meetings I had, having been given the comms portfolio, Sonia and I discussed the communications strategy, or lack thereof, and it's just clear how outdated and unfit for purpose it had become. And I think since that time, even before this has happened, the comms team have done some incredible work without the benefit of that modern kind of guiding document. They've been really resourceful and creative, and I think this is a really exciting opportunity for them to have the framework that they deserve, and for staff to have something to guide their work as well. Really, really excited to see the move towards this aligned branding across our facilities and with our stakeholders. The disjointed and fragmented approach that we've had until now in terms of branding has been a frustration of mine. So I'm really looking forward to that hopefully being rolled out across everything, and having that unified brand, just providing consistency and clarity for our community. and setting a strong base for us going forward. And massive credit to you, Sonia, for doing that work in-house. Your skills just blow me away, and it's so nice to see it all come together and the potential there. So yeah, well done to you. Like, it's just, yeah, you're amazing. And yeah, I guess a few other aspects of the actual strategy that I think will make a real difference. The improvements to the website, fantastic. It's overdue, and I think it'll be a real step forward to ensuring everyone can find information they need, and importantly, understand it and catch up with other councils around the country. And I think I really like the commitment to using elected members more effectively too. I think the idea of like weekly circulation of messaging and updates to us is something that I think can work extremely well. That's something, when I worked at Parliament, that was a key tool in enabling MPs to communicate consistently and effectively when announcements were made and issues raised. And I think, we all have different strengths when it comes to communications and, different channels that we can use. And so, using us and creating more opportunities to spread that information with our communities is going to be really good. Education program on what we do, civics education, that's something that I always talk about, so that's really exciting to see in there. And yeah, just also want to acknowledge the inclusion of that commitment in there too, coming into engagements more open and not pre-selling a solution too hard. I think that's an important consideration to build trust and as well. So really excited that we're taking this step. I guess it's not just about how we look, it's about how we connect and how we build trust and how we make sure our communities feel informed, included and confident in the council. So looking forward to seeing how this will strengthen our relationship with the community, and thanks to the team.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other councillors? Just make comment, a couple of things, very minor things. First of all, really interesting to see that it has been 12 years between each rebrand consistently. So well done making that timeline. The other is the Opera House circle. I can't unsee the rows of seating in that. So a reference to that would be good. Yeah, that would be good. I think it's just really appropriate. So yeah. It stands out as being a bit different to the others, but equally it's got its own special similarities. So thank you very much. If there's no other speakers, we'll put the motion. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, that is carried. Thank you very much for all the work that you've done, and Sonia, you in particular, leading the project getting this to us. Some people won't see it as being very important. I think communications are really important, and how people notice them is a big part of the battle, and this is part of helping people to notice what we are doing as council. So thank you for that. We're a wee bit ahead of time, councillors, so and I think looking through the list, most of the other items require specific staff members to be here. So unless a staff member has something that we could do in the next short while before we have a break for lunch. We've got the ratification of the building, the ratification of submission to the building and construction small standalone dwellings amendment bill. Are we able to deal with that one, Josh?
There's no really technical question.
I think the only technical question would be, I think I saw a headline saying the government's pausing some of the building changes. Was this included in that? Okay.
No, it wasn't. So I think it's the review and potential reform of the building consenting system and the impact on BCAs that I think was announced yesterday. They were pausing that.
Okay.
I don't think it's this particular reform that's being proposed to be delayed.
Okay, well, let's give this a wee shot then. So do you want to speak to it, Josh?
What page?
So page 2, no, is it 241?
241.
241, yes. Josh, thank you.
Thank you very much. This paper is to request formal ratification of the submission made by council on the Building and Construction Standalone Dwellings Amendment Bill. The submission as attached to the report was submitted on 23rd of June 2025 within the public submission timeframe, which was rather short. The submission was circulated for approval and signing prior to being made. The submission expressed a number of concern officers have with the amendment bill, which are sentiments that are broadly shared by local government bodies across the country. The report and submission highlight these issues in detail. I'm happy to answer any
Easy questions.
If there's any more technical questions, then our building services manager can join us after lunch.
Okay, do we have any questions? Councillor Holding, thank you.
Just wondering, did this get run by like the housing, across the housing strategy and some of the staff like Dr. Stewart that's been involved in the housing initiatives, and that they had a chance to feed into that submission?
I probably can't comment a great deal in the detail of how this was actually developed. This certainly did come from the building services team primarily, and covered off questions around liability with respect to the granny flat installations.
Deputy Mayor Halaleli.
No, thank you through the chair. I think it would be important just to include Kayla in these, like types of discussions, because she's actively working in that space and has that in-depth knowledge. So I'm just thinking for another time, just so it doesn't contradict what we're trying to do on the ground with stronger Waitaki and housing task force. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, we can certainly check on that. Essentially though, this has gone. It was a really tight time frame, but we can get that back with that detail. Anything else, Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, I'm trying to work out the extent you talk about, or we talk about in this, the liability issue, and we're saying it's all very well excluding councils from liability, but in practice, TAs will inevitably be approached by property owners, etc., regardless of the limited legislative role. And you then go on to say that you want full civil liability protection to TAs rather than simply having protection limited to advice under Section 35A. So I'm just trying to, how serious do we and or others regard this possibility of exposure? If in fact the legislation says councils aren't have only a limited legislative role, if that is indeed the case, does it matter if property owners, purchasers or effective neighbours turn up and say, oi, you should be doing something? Aren't we just able to say, the law says we don't have to, thank you very much, take your complaint somewhere else? I know that sounds a bit brutal, but surely that's the actual consequence of the legislation.
Yeah, I probably can't comment too much in terms of the detail. What I would say is that there is some broad concern that some of the messaging from this legislation hasn't come through in the way that it should have. There's still district plan considerations that need to be made in terms of when people construct granny flats and when they don't. And these structures are only permitted to be built without a building consent in place if there's a primary residence on the property already. Already within the community, there's a number of people that believe that this allows them to go and build a 70 square metre dwelling on their property where there isn't an existing property, which is then going to cause a whole lot of problems for council in terms of being a regulator and dealing with an illegal building issue, because it's believed that these buildings are permitted to be built due to this amendment bill that's coming through. So council needs to be involved intimately through the notification process of the buildings being built. But with the way that the legislation has been drafted, that process may not occur. So it creates a liability for us.
If I may ask a supplementary question then, are you saying that this council is already being told by certain individuals, residents and ratepayers, I'm going to build this because the government's changing the law? And are they insisting that we have no ability to stop them, where in fact, because the law hasn't at this point been changed, We do we not?
I would say that we haven't been formally notified of any of those kinds of situations. But colloquially, there is the discussion within the community that people are waiting for this to become enacted to enable their buildings to become legal.
I think, you know, this is potentially an unfunded mandate that we end up inheriting because we buildings will be put up without a building consent. We don't receive any money. We get the complaint. We have to deal with it. We've got to investigate it, do whatever. They all cost time and money. And it's whether that should be our responsibility or not. Equally, if it's not our responsibility, for every person who complains about some unlawful building or whatever, or what they think is an unlawful building, there's probably 10 who just think the council just isn't doing its job. And so that's the other challenge. It's I think the concept is really good. It's just really the devil in the detail about how they implement it. And what does fall back on councils is unfunded mandates, and what powers should councils have or not. Where does MB sit in the whole situation? Government wants this sort of growth happening, and that's great. Are they taking responsibility for it? Are they going to shaft the councils with it? With that, does someone want to move? We accept the. I will move. That we accept the submission. Do we have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Thompson, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I'll put it, those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now break for lunch, back at 12:45 to talk about the updated dog bylaw. So looking forward to that. Welcome back, everyone. We'll reconvene this council meeting, and we have got the next item being the Waitaki Dog Control Bylaw, item 6.2 on page 119. And welcome to the chamber, Andrew Bardsley. Am I handing straight to you on this one, or Josh? Okay, Josh, thank you.
Thank you. This report seeks permanent changes to be made to the Waitaki Dog Control Bylaw 2024 and the Waitaki Dog Control Policy of 2024 to permit further on-lead areas in the Waimaru CBD area. This is following a trial of these on-lead areas with a public submission process undertaken to gauge public sentiment and determine whether the changes in the long term would be beneficial for the community. The feedback from the public was mixed, but overwhelmingly positive, hence the recommendation from officers to make the changes permanent. Now I'd like to hand over to our Regulatory and Compliance Manager, Mr. Bardsley, to provide further commentary and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Rendell. With the feedback, the feedback ran for a number of months, giving the members of the public the opportunity to provide some valued feedback in regards to this trial that council has agreed to for 6 months. We've had over 200 respondents in regards to the online feedback platform, and then officers actually went out and engaged with our business community in the CBD area, the North Oamaru CBD area, and Harbour Street. And as Mr. Rendell has said, there was mixed views. However, the majority of people were in favour of the changes. And hopefully councillors have had a chance to read the Oamaru Blue Penguin Colony's separate submission from Mr. Henry Olsom in regards to this. Quite a well put together submission in regards to allowing dogs on lead in Harbour Street. I'm happy to take any questions in regards to this.
Councillor Ryan, thank you.
Thank you. Just wondering if we do support the recommendation today, what the plan is in terms of comms, signage, because I think a lot of the issues that people have raised throughout it are because, you know, they're not permanent yet. And so we haven't dedicated resources to put up permanent signage and that sort of thing. So is there a plan in place for that sort of rollout if and when /when?
Well, thank you. We didn't want to jump the gun and change any of the signage and then have to go and change it again. So there will be a significant amount of signage change for the newly prohibited areas and obviously the ones that have been changed back. So there'll, as a result of whatever the decision made today, we'll be providing the public with that information via our normal comms channels, and then we'll engage with our contractors and our Parks and Rec teams to go out and put up the appropriate signage in regards to whatever the council decides today.
Thank you. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions relating to the changes in wording, but we'll come to those later. For the moment, looking at the Blue Penguin Colony submission, there's a reference on page 161 to incidents and a heightened risk. There's also a photograph on page 166 of a penguin that's had one leg bitten off. And yet, what I don't see anywhere in the penguin colony's submission is any specific identification or indication of an attack by a dog on a penguin in or around Harbour Street. Do we have any evidence that there have been such incidents? And flipping things on their head, when it came, when we looked at the bylaw specifically, in relation to Beach Road, the colony said penguins are protected and there's been incidences where dogs have threatened them on the beach. All of that was anecdotal, but we accepted their argument in relation to Beach Road. Why, given that nothing's changed about penguins or their protected status or anything of that nature, why are we proposing not to accept their submission with regard to Harbour Street?
Well, the first part of your question is that council's animal management team have not been made aware of any attacks by dogs on penguins. And the second part of the question is that's for councillors to decide. Merely put the information in front of you. They just Oamaru Blue Penguin Colony decided to put in a separate submission, quite a detailed one, and I can't provide any further information in regards to their submission.
Thank you. May I ask my questions about the wording now?
We'll go to councillor Holding and see how we go from there.
Is this submission from the Oamaru Blue Penguin Colony subsequent to the trial or pre-trial?
It was part of the trial and us seeking feedback from the community. So they decided that rather than doing the online Let's Talk forum, that they would put in a separate document as part of their feedback in regards to what they think.
Thank you. And apart from the other general feedback you received, have you noticed anything coming through as way of CRMs or anything picking up the regulatory team?
We've had 2 CRMs in regards to issues during the trial. One was a person walking the dog off lead through the main street. Officers had a word with that gentleman. He put his dog on the lead. He was quite happy to do so. And then the complaint from Waitaki Interiors in regards to a dog urinating on one of their displays and damaging items. Those are the only 2 reported things we've had.
Councillor Thompson. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Bardsley, so the online responses, is that where we get the person anonymous making all these submissions?
There was a number of available utterances of the online feedback, and I think councillors in the convene room were provided a non-redacted version. Yeah, we should have done that a bit earlier, but there was an unredacted one in the convene room.
Councillor Blacklow.
Thank you. Just before I ask my question, when did we roll this out again, the trial period?
It was the last council meeting in December when the review for the bylaw was adopted, and then we were asked to do a 6-month trial and report back to council. So we stopped the trial at the end of June just to give people a good crack at it.
Thank you. Yeah, so on that basis, I mean, I was in favour of the position that we took on Harbour Street, but the Penguin Colony's given quite a compelling submission that we may have made a mistake there. Have we had any further discussions with them about potentially letting it run through a breeding season, which to them appears to be the biggest kind of concern, and coming back to that part of this equation for a further assessment following on from a breeding season to see if there has been any disturbances?
No, we haven't.
Yeah. Administratively, how hard would it be to come back and view that one again at a later date, like we are now?
Administratively, it would just require whenever the breeding season is to do just the assessment of the Harbour Street area. I mean, I'm not going to provide my own personal opinion in regards to what might be the best avenue. If councillors want us to go away and engage with the penguin colony to see how things go during the breeding season, then we can do that. Personally, I'd just like to get this bylaw wrapped up. You know, it was a lengthy piece of work. There was plenty of opportunity for people to provide submissions. Yes, the penguin colony have put together a really good submission, and they're obviously very passionate about this. But again, if councillors want us to go away and do another reassessment, and we can bring it back at a later date for just the Harbour Street area.
Just speaking to that, I think I take your point, Mr. Bardsley, around getting this adopted and so on. I think we could also extend an invitation to the penguin colony that if they are noticing anything markedly different or of major concern, then they can always feed that into council And the future council will look at whether they do anything about that at the time. It's just really, it's their area of interest and it's really important. So rather than our staff taking up their time monitoring or having to engage first, being reactive to anything that comes from them would be helpful.
Yes, through the chair, I just wonder that, like, if we're going to acknowledge the concerns that the penguin colony have raised and Councillor Blacker around going through a breeding season, whether the prudent thing wouldn't be to actually revoke the ability to have dogs on lead on Harbour Street until after we do this additional period. Just to bear in mind the concerns that they've raised. I know it's up to councillors to decide that.
Go for it.
If I did have one more question, unrelated to that one, which was that there were a number of concerns raised around behavioural issues up and down Thames Street and around cleaning up after dogs and also stands and items for sale. What options are available to kind of manage the tensions that are created in that area, or do you think they're isolated and kind of not common incidents, or do you think that that's reflective of a theme that is developing?
I congratulate the business owners from coming forward and raising their concerns around behavioural issues around dogs, and it's something that you're not going to get away from. Male dog, it's going to mark its territory. I can only go by the fact that we've only had one complaint made to us. Our observations are that after the initial uptake of dogs being in those areas, it's dropped off significantly. You don't see a lot of dogs up the main street. During the week when the businesses are open on Sunday, you'll get a lot of people out and about with their dogs. Officers haven't noticed any issues, but then we're not out there all the time. And we'd have to obviously accept what the businesses say in regards to the effect it's having on them.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I'm pleased that Councillor Blackler has raised the points he had, because my view is that although it's only a minority of people concerned about dogs urinating on the streets and so on, I would personally prefer to extend the current circumstance by another 6 months, during which time we would make it very clear to dog owners that they would lose this privilege if they didn't police themselves, and that recalcitrant minority that don't appear to care about how their dogs behave. But my specific questions in relation to the wording changes, if I look at the report talks about changes to the wording of the bylaw on page 14, and it seems to me that the wording hasn't been changed at the moment. If we look at 6, continuous control on the following council sports grounds, they are then listed, and then see Schedule 3 1G for further conditions on physically marked pitches. Now, I'm presuming that's what we want to change to all marked sports grounds. Is that correct? Because the wording that's mooted in the report is just marked sports grounds. I would have thought we should include all of them. But am I right in assuming that the change proposed on that page is for those 3 words to be replaced by all marked sports grounds?
In answer to your question, yes, it was
right. No, that's fine. And on page, sorry, I'm just conscious of time. On page 186, under the bylaw WDC Council Sports Grounds, the introductory paragraph states dogs are not permitted on marked pitches. And again, I'm presuming that will now need to be changed to read dogs are not permitted on all marked sports grounds. Is that correct? Okay. Now,
How, I think Andrew wants to
oh, sorry, all right.
say something, or Josh does.
Well, I'm just asking what we're agreeing to by way of a wording change, that's all.
Sorry, councillor, I wasn't aware that you were addressing it to Mr. Rendell. I thought you were addressing.
No,
I wasn't sure who was answering it.
That's you, Andrew.
Oh, sorry, but you were looking at Mr. Rendell.
Oh,
So
I do apologise.
no, it's
Well,
fine.
he's very easy on the eye, isn't
Ah.
he? You.
Undoubtedly, and I'd.
Boundaries, councillor Hopkins, boundaries.
Yes, so councillor Hopkins, it's just the reference to pictures and a number of people
Yes.
have raised that some of the grounds that we're talking about have cricket pitches on them. And they were like, well, is it just cricket pitches? And it can be semantics, and I'm not sure whether the people were being funny about it, but just to take that issue out of it, like all marked sports grounds or marked playing fields seems to potentially maybe work a little bit better. And I think maybe that's what the chair actually mentioned right at when we first adopted this. But
Yeah, cricket is a different one because, it's not, well, they can be marked out with a boundary line. They don't tend to use ropes anymore, but yeah, it's making sure that dogs are kept off those areas where there's going to be players, they're going to be, doing their sport, whether it's sliding, for football or playing rugby or diving for a cricket ball. It's really just keeping them off those pitches and including the whole playing area, not so much the outside the playing area. So that people can go, onto a sports field overall, but not where it's being used for play. So how you articulate that, I'll leave to you, but that was certainly the intention overall, that the likes of Western Domain, that they can go through, there's road and pathways and things they can go on that, but they can go on the grass, but not anywhere where there's rugby marked out or in the case of cricket, where cricket would be played. So can we just leave it to you just to fine tune that if it's not clear?
yeah,
Yes and no. The report says that we're going to change the word marked pitches to marked sports grounds. That change isn't included in the agenda items on the 2 pages I've talked about, pages 14 and 16 of the bylaw. All I wanted to do was ask what wording is going to replace what's there now. And as I understand it, Mr. Barsley has said all marked sports grounds would make sense.
Well, maybe if councillors could sign a motion, or maybe all marked playing areas. So that then specifically relates to the playing areas. I think the intention of it was to allow people to bring their dogs along to sporting events and have them on the sideline, and just not on the actual marked playing field. So we could change it to all marked playing areas.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I think it doesn't hurt to add, the intent of this is to do this. Just to be very clear with people.
And one other question in relation to that, if I may. There's also a proposed change to the policy on page 11 of that policy, or page 213 of our agenda. And it talks about inappropriate or incorrect references to, I think, clauses and so on. The only reference on that page I can find to clauses and so on in Schedule ZL is under 4 in the locations identified in clauses 3A and 3B of Schedule 1. Is that what's going to be changed? And if it is, what are we going to say instead of what's there now?
No, the intention was just to highlight the fact that the wrong numbers had been included. So instead of Schedule 3.1G, it should read Schedule 3.1H. So it was just an oversight in regards to the correct subclause. No wording change at all, just to identify that it was the wrong reference number.
In fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Rendell.
Yes, thank you. Just to pick up on Councillor Hopkins' earlier comments regarding a possible extension of a further trial. I am concerned that we could end up in a situation where we have ongoing trial after trial after trial without any corresponding receipt of additional data that helps us make any further decisions. I think in this case, we've given it 6 months. We've received a number of submissions through the community. We've received over 200 on this particular issue. I do think there should be enough information here to be able to enable us to make a decision, and unsure whether a further trial would actually increase the validity of any decision we're going to make.
Councillor Blackler.
I totally accept your points there, Mr. Rendell. I guess from my perspective, the reason for my question around the timing was that we hadn't actually gone through a breeding period to kind of validate any of those concerns. But if I may, Mayor Kircher, I'd be happy to move the recommendation, but with the removal of B, or if it's not adequate to just remove B, then an amended wording to suggest that dogs won't be allowed on Harbour Street.
Which is it?
Well, Mr. Barsley, would it be appropriate just to remove B and that would satisfy, or does there need to be actual wording to explicitly state, based on previous resolutions, that dogs wouldn't be on Harbour Street?
Well, if the council decided that we're going to remove Harbour Street as an on-lead area, then some sort of resolution to say that we'd revert back to what it was before the bylaw review in 2024. So dogs prohibited.
Okay, so I'd move the resolutions as they're worded, with the amendment to B, which is dogs are prohibited on Harbour Street.
Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second it. There is some discussion.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Blackler, do you want to speak to that to start with?
Oh, look, speaking to the motion, I think, yeah, I'm kind of talking a bit on the fly here, but in principle, I'm in favour of what's been set out to date, but we've got qualified individuals who have put forward a pretty comprehensive submission that I think on the balance probably outweighs other sentiments expressed through the survey. So whether or not my peers are with me, I'd be willing to just try on behalf of the environment.
Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. Throughout the consultation and the trial process, we've heard from lots of different people in the community, and I acknowledge the Blue Penguin Colony submission and the points that Councillor Blackler has raised, but I think from my perspective, I would rather us look at something along the lines of what Mayor Kircher suggested earlier, that we, and to avoid all of the administrative challenges, is that we adopt the recommendations as they are, but not ignoring the submission, and I guess keeping an open mind to potentially changing if there is, if we go through a full breeding season, and if there are issues, not wanting to, I guess, any issues, any issue with penguins down there is not a good situation to put us in. But I think I would rather us make these changes and then look at seeing what happens, I guess, in the next 6 months, to then be able to, for a future council to perhaps be able to be able to look at reversing that in the future. I think, like a lot of the issues that have been raised throughout this process would be addressed, I think, by making the changes permanent and getting better signage, better communication with the public, and just better clarity over, over compliance and enforcement. I think it would be worth giving that a shot to see whether those issues can be alleviated once we move from temporary to a permanent change. Yeah, overwhelmingly, I think the feedback that I've had is that people have really been able to enjoy sitting outside cafes with their dogs, outside Steam, outside Harbour Street Collective and Craftwork. And we do need to listen carefully to the concerns raised by those who don't feel comfortable with dogs, and addressing those issues. But yeah, I think being able to dedicate permanent resources and consistent signage to those areas, so people know exactly what's expected of them, and address those issues is the best way forward. So I won't be supporting the amendment or the amended B option that Councillor Blacklist put forward, but I am supportive overall of the changes being proposed.
Thank you. I concur with that. We are trying to get the right balance here. There's a lot of things and a lot of aspects where we are legislating essentially through the bylaw for the lowest common denominator. We can't, we've got to get the balance right around making our town a welcoming one and a friendly one, and protect the environment. I would hope that any incident that might have happened in the past has either been because these particular rules around Harbour Street haven't been followed, or it's some extraordinary circumstance rather than this is going to be something that happens every year. Giving the penguin colony the ability to say, look, keep us informed if this is happening, if this is becoming an issue, I think keeps the door open to a change by the next council if that's when it happens. But yeah, just allowing people to enjoy our built environment, and hopefully respecting the wildlife at the same time would be my goal. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, look, as I've indicated already, I'm more concerned about Thames Street than Harbour Street, in the sense that the issues that have arisen for retailers and shop owners and business people have occurred on Thames Street. I do want to congratulate officers for the thoroughness of their consultation and the fact that they did engage so comprehensively with businesses in the affected areas. But my argument for supporting Councillor Blackler is essentially one of consistency. We deemed the penguin colony's concerns about Beach Road, although anecdotal and second-hand, were sufficient for us to feel compelled to accept that remain an area where dogs were prohibited on off leash or off lead. And if we're going to say that that's the rule that we've come to feel obliged to apply in Beach Road, I think to be consistent, we have to do so in Harbour Street as well, albeit that the submission, detailed as it is, does not specify any actual identified incident where a dog has been identified as having attacked a penguin.
Any other speakers? I'm going to put the different parts individually. So first, being that council permanently adds to the Waitaki Dog Control Bylaw 2024 and the Waitaki Dog Control Policy 2024 the following changes.
I would like to move a very non-contentious amendment to that second one. If you'll allow me to test if there's a mood for a seconder. After the words policy 2024, I would propose that we put comma, amending the reference to section 3(1)G and replacing the words all marked pitches wherever they appear with the words all marked playing areas.
Okay. You managed to get that, Arlene?
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, and I'm not going to repeat those ones. So the first one is the dog on lead, Thames Street and Thames Highway, Oamaru. So those four, say aye. Those against? That is carried. The second one being the modified recommendation. So dogs prohibited from Harbour Street. Those in favour, say aye. Those against? No. It's lost. And that council approves minor wording changes to the bylaw and policy. Those in favour, say aye. And against? That's carried. I'd move that we have B as written in the recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ryan. Thank you. I think we've probably spoken. So B was that dogs are prohibited from Harbour Street, and that was lost. And now we're going back to the recommendation and the wording there. Tim.
With your permission, Chair, could I propose a slight addition to the wording, which you may or may not be in agreement with, but after where the sentence ends at present, we could add with a commitment to further review if evidence from Oamaru Blue Penguin Colony supports the need for this.
I'm okay. Councillor Ryan, are you okay with that wording? Yeah. Okay. So that's part of the substantive motion. I'm going to put that. Those in favour say aye. And against? That's carried. Thanks very much, Andrew, Josh, for your work. We appreciate the extra work that having that review period created, but I think it's been very useful, and certainly is, I think, been appreciated by a lot of ones in the community. And yeah, again, it's hard to get that balance between all of the different factors, but hopefully we've got a good workable dog policy and bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, right, this one should be pretty quick. Corridor water management. So who's speaking to this one? Josh. And to you again.
Most of you will probably be aware of the long-standing relationship the council has with Corridor Water Management Limited, who manage 4 of council's water supplies, those being Tokarahi, Almoko, Carrahill and Windsor. An existing MOU that council had with Corridor Water Management Limited expired in 2022, with a new MOU being negotiated. Through that process, it was felt that given the relevant changes within regulations, the emergence of the water regulator Taumata Arawai, and ongoing changes with respect to possible future delivery of water services, that an agreement or a contractual arrangement would be better placed to position Corridor Water Management Limited for the management of these supplies moving forward. As such, we've taken steps to put together an agreement that is acceptable to both parties, which outlines the responsibilities and expectations of the 2 parties in the delivery of water services to those suppliers. Now seeking endorsement from yourselves to allow our chief executive to be able to sign that agreement. It does require your delegated authority because the value of the contract overall that we're talking about for the time period we are would exceed Alex's delegations as currently written. I do think that the work the Corridor Water Management Limited have done in managing these supplies has been fantastic. I'm in no doubt that they've put a lot of effort in and are doing their absolute best to manage these supplies in line with the expectations that Taumata Arawai and the economic regulator are going to have. I don't think this is the last time we'll have an opportunity to, or we'll have the need to come and discuss this particular issue. But this is at least going to put it to bed for the next 5 years until 2030, as we're currently indicating in here. Happy to answer any questions or
Thank
Gary
you,
can as
Josh.
well.
And I do know Gary McLeod, who manages the schemes there for Corridor Water, is in the chamber, and just invite you to take a seat at the table, Gary. I've got one question which comes from something that Councillor McCone said, who has a little bit of history with the Tokaraki supply, and that's really around the number of consumers that are on that supply. 500 is one of the magic numbers when it comes to managing water services and water supplies for consumers. And it's his assertion that there are fewer than 500 people on that particular scheme. Do you have any view on that particular number?
Thank you, Gary. Yes, we don't believe that the number that we're not quite sure where the number comes from. And when we look at the number of ratepayers on the scheme, and they're also, each of these schemes have some crossover into other schemes. So Tokaraki boundaries, Awamoko and Windsor, and yeah, we don't feel, having looked at the number of people over the previous number of years, there was that many there. It's I think the number's 570 odd or something like that, and that puts us in that tier 3, which is the highest level of for treating water. But without physically going out and counting everybody, which we have attempted to do in the past, we can't show that that number is less than 500.
Okay. Yeah, it might be a bit of future work, but yeah, no, it is separate to this and to a degree, but it's just raising that as a potential bit of work for the future.
Yeah, in the interim though, because more than 75% of the water is stock water, it still comes under the acceptable solutions rules. So that's what we're pursuing, that option at the moment.
Yep.
For that scheme and the 3 others.
No, that's good, and just acknowledge your work with Taumata Arawai on that particular aspect is something that we've been advocating for quite some time, is to make it as workable as possible. Councillors, any questions for Mr. Rendell or for Mr. McLeod? Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I've got a couple. If there's a thing like a typo or a grammatical thing, who do I take that up with? Okay. The 2 questions I have, one is very practical or very simple. What will the commencement date be? It's just shown as XX in the report. And the other bigger matter on page 235 of our agenda, I'm just curious to know, under obligations at the bottom, Corridale is required to hold suitable insurance for all obligations. This includes, but is not limited to, public liability and professional indemnity insurance. I can't see any references anywhere to any corresponding requirement on council's behalf. And I'm just wondering, is that because there are no insurance liabilities for us? We do still have, as I understand it, some ownership role in this. So I'm just curious why insurance applies to one of the parties but not the other.
With respect to your first question, the commencement date would be the date of signing. So, yep, once there's approval from yourselves for our chief executive to be able to sign the document, and we've updated any of the grammatical or spelling errors that we may have missed, that'll be the commencement date once we sign it. With respect to insurance, council already holds those insurances. What we're probably spelling out quite clearly as far as the expectation here is that Corridale Water Management Limited won't be covered by council's insurances, so it needs to receive its own.
As do every other contractor that we work with. Yeah. Any other questions? Councillor Blackmart.
Yeah, I just note in the paper that it says that Corridale Water are ready to sign. So so in that sense, just want to make sure that there's no kind of contentious issues that still need to be panel beated by either party. And then, is there any impact in and around our recent water decision and how this document's framed or worded? And so, are there any kind of contextual matters that need to be addressed?
with respect to your first question, no, I don't believe there are any contentious matters that are still needing to be negotiated. Both parties have had an opportunity to be able to review the agreement and in agreement with everything that's come before you. With respect to the second question, no, the agreement was written, primarily so that the agreement would be able to be carried over into a CCO if that was the decision of council. But it still works within the operating context where we're delivering it in-house. I do think that a contractual agreement is a better mechanism than simply a memorandum of understanding, as it does clearly delineate roles and responsibilities, and for audit purposes does probably clarify the relationship a little bit more firmly.
I'm happy to move. Okay, as you were putting your hand up. So I'll move that, and seconded by Councillor Thompson without a P. Thank you. Do we have any ones want to speak to it? I'll just say a few words, which is just really thanking Corridor Water for the work that they have been doing, and it's certainly provided a really good cost-effective service overall. It's a challenging environment with changing legislation, and it's good to have someone like yourself, Gary, who's over that and keeping an eye on what needs to be done, and it's certainly serving the consumers of those schemes well. So thank you for all of that. With the proposed CCO option, we were referring to rural water schemes as the fourth water, and it's certainly my intention that we continue having that delineation between rural schemes and urban ones. And who knows, we might have a few other ones you guys could look after as well, but we'll see how we go. But no, thank you for the work that you've done, and to Josh and team, thanks for the work that you've done in putting this together, because it does give a much more concrete position for Corridor Water to work with us. So it's very much appreciated. Anyone wish to speak to it? We'll put it then. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much, Gary and councillors and Josh. And I think it was a good process we've gone through. And as Josh noted, there were no contentious issues. And we spent a bit of time with your team and Caitlin and co. So I believe it'll be a good, and we'll have a good working relationship going forward as we have coming to this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, we're on to item 6.5 next, which is on page 250. And is Amanda coming?
I can cover this.
You can get started, Paul, and that'll be good. We'll let you get on with it.
Yeah, this is a relatively simple and direct paper. Really came about from a request from Marama Airfield Limited, given the challenge they were facing meeting all of their requirements in relation to council, particularly the cost of audit, as noted in the request attached to the report. And it was considered that it was appropriate to make an exempt organisation, hence the recommendation. And at the same time, we were considering Waitaki District Health Services Limited, and given the change in the nature of that organisation and its operations, that it would also be worthwhile to exempt it from the requirements under the LGA. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Tim.
Thank you. I just had a question. If we go to the supporting information that this is directly in relation to Waitaki Airfield. Amanda, at one point in the email chain there, you've mentioned that you're worried exempting may not achieve the purpose desired around reducing the audit fee, but then in the paper itself, it infers that will be the outcome. So are you satisfied that, have you been satisfied since kind of going through the discussions that will be the case?
Yep, that was something I clarified with the, our appointed auditor, Derek, from Audit New Zealand, just to confirm that there would definitely be no legislation that would capture any audit requirement. I was, just wanted to clarify that if they're exempted from the Local Government Act, there is no other legislation or nothing else that would capture them under the Public Audit Act, that they would require an audit as a public entity. So I've confirmed that with him. That's the case. They won't require an audit.
Are they a charitable entity? So they will still require an audit in that regard?
Yep, they're a charitable entity. So yeah, there's different audit requirements for that. So it just won't be captured by the Office of the Auditor General, which its scope is higher than a normal audit requirement. So as a charity, they could approach any auditor, accountant, anybody could do it pro bono, could be free, potentially.
Any other questions?
With your permission, I'm more than happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Blackler. Just one very quick question, and that's really around the retirement village. Is there any potential that it could be bundled into these as well with the retirement village trust and companies, or is it? I mean, we're trying to get separation anyway, in every other sense, but whether this is a backstop for them.
I'd have to, that's not something I considered. I'd have to look into that and probably double check with the auditor as well. Obviously, they've got different views on why that entity is picked up in our group in the first place. It might still meet the public entity threshold on basis of materiality. It's a material aspect of the council.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Right, moved, seconded. Any further discussion? I will put it. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? Carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Amanda, for the work. This is something that will save those organisations a bit of money, and it's a little bit of that red tape being cut back, hopefully. So thank you. Okay, we've got
Question. It just relates to a recommendation from Mr. Neil. Is that something that was produced as information to support what we've just voted on, or is it a separate matter that we now have to discuss?
So we will go to that agenda item. So recommendation to continue with Waitaki District Health Services Limited as a CCO until a complaint is resolved. So hand to Chair of Waitaki District Health Services Limited.
Thank you, Mayor Kircher. So as you've just mentioned, I present this paper today as the independent chair of Waitaki District Health Services Limited. The previous motion recommending that whilst they are CCOs, they don't have to, they have exemptions from the Local Government Act, is gratefully appreciated. But this paper is in response to direction that was provided by the council previously as the state, as the shareholder, the singular shareholder for Waitaki District Health Services, for us to wind Waitaki District Health Services up by the 30th of June 2025. And you'll note I apologise, there's a couple of errors in there which refer to 2005. So whilst we're late, we're not that late. It was our intent to wind Waitaki District Health Services up by 30 June 2025. As you're all aware, Waitaki District Health Services is not the entity that it was prior to Te Whatu Ora taking over the management of the hospital again, and it has effectively now morphed into a property management company or a landlord for the hospital. And so it was deemed by you as shareholders that it would be appropriate to take the assets back into Waitaki District Council, and for Waitaki District Council to efficiently operate as the property manager for the hospital buildings. That was our intent. However, since that directive was given. Again, as you'll all be aware, Waitaki District Health Services Limited has received a complaint from the Health and Disabilities Commissioner regarding the historical treatment of a patient. Whilst that complaint is live, it would be very difficult for us to wind Waitaki District Health Services Limited up as an entity. In fact, part of the process of winding a company or a CCO up is that you have to publicly notify, and there's a period of 20 business days whereby anybody in the public can submit that shouldn't be the case. And the advice that we've received is that with an active complaint, it would be perfectly within the Health and Disability Commissioner's remit to lodge an argument against it. So we're stuck in a bit of a tricky position. The intent and the benefit of winding up Waitaki District Health Services is still very much the way that it was before, but due to this complaint and the process that needs to be worked through around this complaint, and we don't have an end date for that. It could be 6 months, it could be 2 years. We come to the council as shareholders today seeking support for the recommendation that we progress with simplifying Waitaki District Health Services as a CCO as much as possible, but keeping it as a CCO until the complaint is resolved. And I'll open up for any questions.
Thank you, Simon. Jeremy.
Are we allowed to ask why the ongoing complaint's going to be taking that long to be sorted?
We have absolutely no control over the duration of that process. As part of our insurance and indemnity, we have access to experienced lawyers in these situations, and she is unable to put any time frame around it whatsoever. The Health and Disability Commissioner process takes as long as the Health and Disability Commissioner process takes.
And I think it's not uncommon for it to take more than 2 years.
To supplement, what's the risk then if we did push forward to close it? I just try to understand the risk.
One, that the Health and Disability Commissioner lodges a complaint, and we refuse to be able to do so. We have written separately to the Health and Disability Commissioner, sharing with them the change in the status of Waitaki District Health Services and the fact that it is no longer the entity that it was. Even if the Health and Disability Commissioner comes back and deems that there needs to be changes to practices or course of actions as a result of the complaint, there's absolutely nothing that Waitaki District Health Services can do to implement those. So we have written, and again, we await a response from them, but that could be a process. So until we either receive confirmation from the Health and Disability Commissioner that they're comfortable with us doing that and transferring any liabilities or any risks to Waitaki District Council, we think that the most prudent course of action is for us to just retain it as a very, very simplified organisation and work through the timing and the process. The other option that you'll see listed there is that we continue to keep Waitaki District Health Services as the CCO that it is now. But to Amanda's point just before around accounting and audit and all of those practices, that comes with unnecessary cost to the community.
Yeah, Simon, you've just made a point that I hadn't anticipated you making, namely that the Health and Disabilities Commissioner may opt to transfer liabilities to us. I would have thought, given what we've said to them, i.e. that Health NZ pulled the pin, took over, that any changes, any liabilities or operational changes should sit with them. What liabilities might end up with the council? Are they financial, or, and if not, what are their actual implications?
So you're absolutely right that in all likelihood any any liabilities or remediations that come as a result of the Health and Disability Commissioner's investigation are likely to be operational.
Right.
However, and I say however, in extreme circumstances, you can also have complaints escalated to, I think, was it the Privacy Commission or there are extreme instances where there could be a financial liability tied to the complaint. The advice that we've got so far is that that's extremely unlikely in this instance. But and we don't anticipate that would be the case, but for the Health and Disability Commissioner to allow us to wind up as per the request of our leader, we would need Waitaki District Council to assume responsibility for any residual liabilities that were there.
Thank you.
Anything else? Someone happy to move the recommendation? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Ryan. Any further discussion? Okay, those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, those carried. That completes our public items. We have couple of sets of minutes and recommendations and in public excluded. So can someone move that we go into public excluded, please? Councillor Ryan, Councillor Linwood. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
That is against. That's carried. Before we do that, I just thank anyone who's been watching online and watching the recording, and to staff, thanks very much for all of the contributions that you've made here today as well. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting briefly while we go into PE. Thank you.